Hey everybody, and welcome to another amazingly phenomenal edition of Finding Peaks. Grateful to be here with some of my good friends and colleagues. We got Jason Friesma, Chief Clinical Officer, LPC LAC. That's it, LPC, Licensed Professional Counselor. And we have Rachael Tapp, who is our Outpatient Director, correct? And my name is Chris Burns. I am the President and Founder currently, but I'm working on another title, also known as
Motivational Specialist.
Motivational Specialist. So grateful to be here today on this Thursday. I really love coming in here on a Thursday because I spend a tremendous amount of time on the client level on Thursday, and I'm reminded every Thursday and every Friday when we get to do CrossFit with the clients and kind of run a circle and check-in group why we do what we do and why it's so impactful. And there couldn't be two more professionals sitting in front of us today that share in that impact. And so really grateful to have Rachael on for the first time. Rachael started with us New Year's Eve 2016. And she actually, before the show, described her first shift as being pretty intense, with not a tremendous amount of training, but Peaks Recovery in 2021 has a great training program, continued education, you name it, we're here for you. But maybe talk with us a little bit about, Rachael, kind of the early professional stages. I know you worked over at Parker Valley Hope, and then transitioned over to Peaks Recovery through a friend of ours named Robert Jocelyn, and a great professional in the community. And maybe just talk to us about that transition and kind of the roles that you've assumed and stepped into and been promoted within. And we'll start there.
Okay. Yeah, I started my journey in this field at at Parker Valley Hope. And I think that was a really good like stepping stone for me. I think that was where I think I found my passion at Parker Valley Hope, like for the field. And yeah, I mean, like you said, I knew Robert Jocelyn. He also worked at Parker Valley Hope, and then yeah, I was there for almost 2 years. And it was, I mean, I learned a lot. I completely, you know, I was immersed in the work there. And I really enjoyed it until I didn't. And I reached out to Robert, who was working at Triple Peaks. And he said that there were some positions open, and I reached out to him, and Angelica was actually the one who interviewed me initially. And I'll never forget because she did ask me who my favorite superhero was. And
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It totally threw me off guard. I was like, wait, what, like, why do you care? But yeah, it was a really interesting question.
Wait, but who's your superhero?
Yeah.
Okay, so listen. So I said Ant-Man.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah, I'm not really like
Wasn't expecting
small at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like a superhero really person. Yeah, Ant-Man's small but like powerful. But I'm also not like small. Like I'm not short.
yeah.
That's besides the point. Yeah, and so I interviewed with her, and she offered me the position, and things got better at Parker Valley, so I stayed. So I declined the position, and yeah, and there was one day that I was praying, and I was questioning, you know, if I was supposed to be working in this field, like what I was supposed to be doing. And Angelica called me the next day. And I told her, I was like, listen, this is crazy that you're calling me. And she told me, she was like, Rachael, I called you because I had a gut feeling to call you. And so like from there on, I told her, I was like, I don't care what shift it is. I don't care how much you guys pay me. Like I'm in. And so I started as the weekend house manager. And that's when we stayed on for however many hours.
Right.
And
All
slept
the hours,
there. Yeah,
36
all,
hours.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started with that, and I think during, you know, the house manager position, I learned that I learn best being thrown into things like that. So there, like you said, like there wasn't a lot of training, but I think that that's exactly what I needed.
And I don't know if you know this, but it actually just reminded me. I remember when we hired you, and this was, 2016 coming into 2017, we're talking 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've grown in the field and our company's grown a tremendous amount. But I used to think in that residential director position, I was like, you have to be in substance use recovery.
Yep.
You have to. And I remember when they hired you, and I maybe even told somebody, I don't know that she's going to be really functional in this role. She's not in substance recovery. And to counter that point, Rachael was the longest standing person in that role, was probably the best individual professional we've ever had in that role. And very quickly, I was shown an opportunity for growth. So I wanted to share that with you.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now I've come a long way. I'm like, you actually you probably shouldn't be in recovery. At least that kind of recovery. So.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you sharing that with me because that was something that was really hard for me for a long time. Like I doubted myself quite frequently, actually, because you weren't the only person who had that response. But yeah, I learned a lot in the house manager position, and I remember interviewing for the residential director position. And I mean, you remember.
Yeah, I do. I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
I was there again.
It was Jason and Corinne, and Jason asked me what I did for self-care. And this was a turning point for me as well, and Jason and I talk about it all the time, but my response for self-care was that I sleep.
That was what you said.
Yeah.
That's honest.
Just like really embarrassing. Yeah. But I've since grown a lot in the self-care department. It's been improved. And the residential director position, I think I learned a lot about myself in that position. So I learned boundaries. I didn't even know like what boundaries were. Like I was working, I don't even know how much I was working. And I remember, I remember going to Jason and I was like, listen, like I can't do this anymore. And he was like, well, you said, are you running toward or are you running from? And I was definitely running from. And that's when we implemented the counselor on call because I was on call. Yeah.
Rachel. Became my problem.
Yes, it did. Well, and I think like what that taught me was what actually happens when you ask for help and like when you like put a voice to what you actually need. And yeah, I think mostly boundaries in that position. And then the residential operations director. So when I transitioned into that role, I think that was when I learned a lot more about like the professionalism and like the more professional piece. So that was when I was invited into the leadership meeting, and I mean I think that meeting I learned how to regulate my emotions in that meeting, which was hard, but I don't think I learned the hard way. I think I learned beforehand. But a lot of professionalism and just like how to carry myself. I've always known that I have like a lot like this presence and this energy, but I don't know that I ever really knew what to do with it. And I think in the residential operations director position, I think I learned. And now I'm in, the director of outpatient services position, and I think in this position so far, I've learned, maybe like my power, and like autonomy. I think I've felt a level of autonomy and a level of guidance, like the perfect amount of autonomy and guidance. And I just continue to learn about myself professionally and personally.
That's phenomenal too, because we come from such a generation in recovery of experience, strength, and hope.
Yep.
Experience, strength, and hope. What's your experience, strength, and hope? And most people coming into treatment when you first started were like, what's your experience, strength, and hope?
Yep.
How do you share experience, strength, and hope? Because Rachael was somebody in those rooms that's guiding a circle process. And so she's in there checking in with people about their day, checking in with cravings, checking in with triggers, checking in with how we're doing, behaviors, how are we eating, how are we sleeping? And never having been in their shoes, how do you navigate that process so well?
So like I said, that was something that was really hard for me. So from my experience, what would actually happen is, you know, like the clients come in and their first question is like, what's your drug of choice? And, you know, like I learned this the hard way. You know, I would say, well, you know, like I don't have a drug of choice. I've never used drugs. And I could see immediately like the wall go up, and the client, without saying it, would say, like, oh, you don't get it. You don't understand me. You're not someone I can relate to. And so, and this is something I actually walked through with Lauren. Because, you know, it was really hard, and I experienced quite a bit of shame about it. But I think what I can relate to is the feelings. So, like, my response now is, you know, I've never been addicted to a substance, but I know what it feels like to be depressed, and I know what it feels like to be so anxious you don't know what to do with yourself. I know what it feels like to be like despair. Like, I know shame. I know all those feelings. So I think, you know, that's how I can relate to our clients now, those that have, you know, substance use issues. And that, I mean, I think that is almost more like powerful.
Most definitely. And to your point, what you just shared, I was in Circle this morning, and a client of ours was talking to Bobby actually, and said, hey, you said something to me when I was in detox. I want you to know it really helped the way that it shifted the way that I looked at this. He's like, I thought I was coming here to learn how to not drink, which to me meant unhappiness, a life sentence of unhappiness. And you came in and said, you're actually here more to learn how to be happy than to learn not to drink. And something so simple like that, because it's not, and maybe you were the front end of this new progression at Peaks, because it is so not about coping mechanisms, right? It's about pain and shame, of which most humans can identify and relate to if they give themselves a chance. And so I really love that too, because it pushes it in the direction that it needs to be. I think we really would do ourselves a service by quit talking about substances and drug of choice and war stories, because it doesn't matter. We talk about the stuff that really matters, and that's pinging that intensity to get loaded, to get high, to escape, which is pain. How has it been for you, kind of being, because I know Jason's been, you know, somewhat of a mentor, and, you know, it's Jason who will ask clients and as well as professionals and his friends really good, caring questions like, are you running toward, are you running away? What has it been like as a professional who's been doing this for a tremendous amount of time? See a young professional like Rachael really grow and flourish as a result of a little bit of guidance and some passion.
Chris, that's a great question. And I think it's been, I mean, it's why I'm here, to be honest with you. I've done private practice work. I can do counseling kind of wherever, actually. Not trying to be rude, but like the reason I'm here is because of our team and because of really the tone from the moment I started at Peaks has been to support clients, but also to support each other and to be a group of people who are, well, they're here to be here for one another. And honestly, we spend a lot of time at work, especially lately. And and frankly, to be able to care and have genuine conversations with people and to provide a little bit of mentorship or ask a question here or there, or just offer a word of support, or you know, have somebody walk into my office, close the door, and be like, wow, this is what's happening in my life. It's been a great honor, to be honest with you. And I think what you said too, and what we probably didn't see 4 or 5 years ago when we were doing this, is we were setting a stage to really not just help people struggling with substance addiction, but to help people that are just struggling with life and with depression and with anxiety and with with life, basically. And we had created such an environment that to invite people in that maybe don't identify with any substance of choice, like they can come and receive help at Peaks too, whereas 4 or 5 years ago that wasn't the case. And I really related to what you said too, Rachael. because I was actually the first person Peaks hired that wasn't going to AA, wasn't in recovery actually, and like
Had me fooled.
yeah, that's true. I did have you fooled.
Me and Bobby were like, I bet he's got 15 years. And Bobby's like, I think he's probably got 20.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Like, okay.
of recovery. So I appreciate
Yeah,
that. I from you guys, that's a really
Yeah,
big
that's great.
compliment that you thought I was a heroin addict
Yeah, that's great.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Some people might not think that's a compliment, but
I
it was.
know.
But in all seriousness, like, I know that was outside of your comfort zone to begin to add on people who thought maybe a little bit differently or came at this a little bit differently. But what it has done, and I think it's really been able to like free Peaks to really elevate itself to provide care specifically to just anyone who's struggling with anything, and we can find the empathy for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, and you bring up a really good point too, and something that I know I don't think makes Peaks really unique is professionals like Jason and professionals like Rachel who are willing to sit down and really hold space for people. And it's been the first treatment program that I've been a part of, and most certainly I'm biased. But I watch our team, every therapist, CCAs even, holding space for people, and it comes from the top down. And the ability to sit with people after they hold space with people, which can be a really intense situation. So I just kind of want to end with, how do you hold space and why do you do it?
So I think it varies. So for me, I think, you talked about it earlier, like the attunement, and just being attuned to the client and quite literally meeting them where they're at, like we talk about it all the time, like just meet them where they're at, meet them where they're at. And I think holding space is like a different level of meeting people where they're at. Yeah, I mean, and for me, like, I ask, what do you need right now? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need feedback? And just sitting there in the uncomfortability. And why do I do it? I do it because I want to be able to, honestly, I want to be able to do something different. I think growing up, I think that was kind of something that wasn't always welcomed. And so, it's like personally, I just want to do something different.
Yeah, I love that. How about you?
I'm going to use Pema Chodron's words, who said that empathy is knowing our own darkness well enough to sit in the dark with another. And that's holding space, is just sitting in the dark with another.
Yeah.
You don't have to bring solution, you just bring yourself, and you just meet another person where they are.
I love that.
Yeah.
Both phenomenal descriptions. In my experience in the field and in recovery, there had been a time where I was just unable to hold space. I wasn't at a spot in my recovery with my pain and my shame in order to sit and really, what I consider holding space today is leaning in and really leaning in. And sometimes clients and people, they'll deliver information out that pushes a lot of people away. And I think you all do a phenomenal job when that information comes out of just getting closer and leaning in. And it's been my experience over the last year and a half, and most certainly in the pandemic, is like you can feel the trust build when you lean in and hold space. And it's just like the client wants to get closer, the professional wants to get closer, and it becomes much more connected. So I thank you both for coming on today. It's been phenomenal just checking in about fun stuff that I love to talk about, which is passion, recovery, shame, pain, all of that stuff.
Good stuff.
So
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Great Thursday to be here. That's all for Finding Peaks today. Please find us on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week. It's been an absolute pleasure. Be great.